And now I would like to give the word to Pedro Ballesteros, who needs no introduction. He's not only a master of wine, but he's a master of communication of wine of Spain with a heart, with his big heart. Um, Pedro, I only have one word for you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for being with all of us today and show us the current issues on Cava and new zonification rules. And thank you for taking this time with all of us. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pablo. One remark before speaking. I hate to see myself, so I've hidden the camera so I don't know how I appear. If you see something strange or out of whatever, because I tend to move my hands, please let me know. But I cannot speak just looking at myself because I think it's crazy, that, no? But this is the only thing. So I will speak just looking at the faces I see here in my screen that are always good faces. Well, today is to speak about Cava, where Cava is now, where Cava intends to be in the future, and which are the novelties, the new regulations that Cava is implementing in order to reach their own objectives. In order to understand this, please give me 5 to 7 minutes to explain to you a little bit the background. For some of you, I'm sure that you know it, but nonetheless, it helps very much to understand where we are, why we are here, and how things are developing. Cava was invented in 1872 by Mr. Raventós, of the family who founded Codorníu. Codorníu was already founded much before. And Cava at the beginning was simply Mr. Raventós. At one time in history, he went to Paris. He realized that the rich bourgeoisie, they were drinking champagne. In Spain, it was at the time that mostly in Catalonia, there was also a new rich bourgeoisie that like to celebrate with bubbles all over the world. As soon as the people is happy, they look for bubbles and they tend to do this. I think in Germany was something similar as well with the sect and the explosion of the sparkling wines. And Mr. Raventós learned the méthode champenoise, the méthode traditionnelle, méthode classique, just whatever the name that you want to give to it. And he imported the technology to Catalonia, and he started producing sparkling wines according to the method that was developing champagne. He was thinking of bringing the whole thing with him, the method and the grapes and the way of cultivation. Of course, the climates are quite different in Catalonia than and in Champagne. So in a very short period of time, he realized that there were a number of grapes in Catalonia that could produce very nice sparkling wines, and they didn't need the Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and they were based on the trilogy of classic grape varieties for Cava that is still there, the white Parellada, Xarel·lo, and Macabeo, or Viura, as it is now in Rioja. Well, this was the beginning. Then there were other grape varieties, other things. The wine was not called Cava, it was called Champagne in Catalan at the period. It was written Xampany, and it was called just like this for many, many years until 1972, in which there were negotiations with the French, and the name Champagne was, of course, abandoned because it was not very, very funny for the Champenois people just to have these two names. Until 1972, during this century, between 1872 and 1972, Cava, or the Catalan champagne, was a wine that was drank by the bourgeoisie, by the people that had something to celebrate. It was very greatly benefited at the beginning because of phylloxera, because the phylloxera arrived to Spain much later than to France. So there was a lot of exports from Spain to France of wine. But once the French, they recovered, they put trade barriers to Spanish wines in order just to limit the import of Spanish wine. And the Spanish government at the time, they also put very high tariffs to French wines, among them champagne. So the rich people in Spain, they started abandoning champagne and drinking cava. And then when the barriers were lowered down, when the trade was open again, the people were already used to cava, and it was just the basis for this. Then, as you know, in Spain, we have a very long dictatorship with many consequences. Among them is not one of the most important, but it's important somehow. It was the consequence that Spain was quite of an isolated country. So the cava developed first in the internal market, but then little by little, mostly from the 1960s onwards, the markets started to open, and cava was a big success in export markets. Cava producers, the most important producers, were very good also in marketing. They were mastering very well all the winemaking techniques, and they were improving this, and they were producing a wine that was a very good price and very good quality, and was something that was very useful for the expanding middle classes all over Europe and then all over the world. Now cava is exported to more than 100 countries all over the world. Well, it was the case. At the time, 1972, when cava was invented as, or the name cava was decided, cava was a technical wine that was produced according to a particular method, and origin was important, but not so much important. The important thing was the method for this. At this time, because sparkling wines in Spain were getting more and more of a market, cava was produced mostly in Catalonia, but also a few wineries outside Catalonia were producing sparkling wines according to the method champenoise, or to the traditional method. Wineries in different regions of Spain. So that in 1972, the Spanish government, they could not decide to create an appellation of origin as a typical one, and they created a legal figure that was called a specific appellation. That was an appellation according to the method of production. Because of that, cava was born being an appellation in different regions. When Franco died, and we were already ready to get in to enter into the European Union, at the time it was the European Economic Area, in the discussions for aligning all the regulations, it was imposed that we could not keep this legal figure of a specific denomination. So it was created an appellation of origin with many origins, and this is the origin of the cava appellation. Because of that, it's quite surprising that you have cava with an appellation of origin that is in Catalonia, that is in Rioja, that is in Aragon, that is in Valencia, and that is in Extremadura. This is the reason for that. Well, things were going well. People, the producers, were refining their techniques. They were understanding more and more their vineyards. They were having even excellence from a technical point of view. They were behind the development of the Giro Palette. They are still leaders in the development of yeast for sparkling wines that are being used by producers all over the world. And they were producing a wine that was good quality and was very competitive. One of the reasons for the competitiveness of Spanish wines is that in my country, the grapes are still very, very cheap. This is a big difference. Take into account that in Champagne, the price of the grapes is more or less 6 to 7 euro a kilo. Still in Penedès, the price of the grapes is 40 cents of an euro a kilo. This is one of the things. It's also a matter of development. And this is one of the reasons why the Spanish wines are relatively cheaper. What is made in the winery is absolutely similar all over the regions. Well, we were having this experience. A few producers were looking more and more to the vineyards. There was an industry that was more or less split in two types of companies, three big companies exporting all over the world with very respectable volumes of production, and that buying grapes all over the region, mostly in Catalonia, and many, many other companies that were vineyards that were becoming winemakers, a model that is very similar to Champagne many years ago. They was creating more and more the conscience of the importance of the vineyard. Of course, the vine growers are the ones that are going to put more importance on this, and there was it was being created a kind of a pyramid of quality in Cava in a very natural way. But the appellation of origin continues to be a single appellation of origin. All wines were Cava. Because of the experience with aging the wines, the producers already knew that top quality grapes result in very high quality, top quality wines that are going to improve with long aging. So aging was the first indicator of quality for Cava wines. Because of that, it was set up from the very beginning a minimum aging time for Cava, 9 months, and then they realized that Cava that were aged for a longer time were of a superior quality, and for some wines when they were aged for many years, they were of a top quality. So there was a first classification of quality, the traditional one that was simply normal Cava, Cava de Guardia, 9 months, Reserva, 18 months, and Gran Reserva, 30 months minimum aging time. And there was no other classification for that. It was working very well for a time until there were some top quality cavas that were appearing little by little at the end of last century, at very end of last century, and of course in this century much more. And most of these new high quality cavas, they were having a reference to a particular vineyard. So it was something that was creating some movement in the appellation, and there were of course different interests in the market, but the decision by the appellation of origin was at the time to start building a pyramid of quality, not only based upon age, but also upon origin from the top. Instead of going from basic Cava to Cavas that are more and more specific, the decision, I think it was good at the time, was since we have a number of Cavas that are already distinguished, that are getting very good prices in international market, that they have a distinction. And since we can require to those wines to comply with a number of very stringent conditions, let's start by defining the top category of Cava, that is the Cava de Paraje Calificado. This was the first element. I was very much honored to be in the selection committee. It was a very complex one. They have to produce a dossier with a historic background, with a very good definition of the vineyard that had to comply with a number of conditions concerning the age of the vines, the yield for the transformation from grapes into wine, the minimum aging that was 36 months, etc., etc. We selected at the beginning 10 Cava de Paraje Calificado, and it was a very good success in terms of the market. But of course, at the time, the classification of Cava was very much incomplete. You have all the basic Cava with the classification according to aging, and then you have only 10 Cavas that were indicating a very specific, a single vineyard origin. So everything in between was not yet prepared. And this is what is going on now. Now, finally, in Cava, the consumer, the professional, they should be able to identify where a Cava is coming from when these Cavas are having a special quality, what is called Cava Superior, Cava de Guardia Superior. Normal Cava is going to continue as it is now with a generic indication Cava with the minimum aging of 9 months and just simply indicating Cava, and they are the grapes, they may come from wherever. Normally, they are going to come from specific regions, but they may come from wherever. But once you are getting into a specific, a higher quality ambitions, be it because you are keeping the wines, you are aging the wines in the bottle for a longer time than 18 months, or because you are selecting, and because you are selecting a particular origin, you may add to the cava the name superior, and then you may add also the names of zones and subzones. By this, we will little by little, this is not the situation yet, you will see with the different cavas, the 3 cavas that we are presenting today, but I think, I'm very much convinced that for the majority of these indications, people will be able to identify in blind testing the different types of cava, because the areas are very well identified. So this is just the rationale for this. You have, let me see, to indicate this to you. This is a paper that you already have. So you will have here Cava de Guarda. This is the basic cava that is complying with a number of quality requirements, 9-month aging, the méthode champenoise, etc., etc. Full traceability. This is going to happen for the whole appellation. You are going to know where the grapes come for the particular wine, and then you have all the new quality indications that are grouped under the name Cava de Guardia Superior. You may have cavas that are Reserva, 18 months, Gran Reserva, 30 months, or Paraje Calificado, 36 months. But on top of that, this you have to cross, that you may have Reserva from a particular zone or subzone, and subzone, or you may have Reservas that are not indicating the subzone. This is in order to give all the possibilities for this. I will explain to you the different subzones and how we may anticipate some of the distinctions that we will find on this. Take into account that this is something new, so the new wines are going to be released in the market just little by little. Before going to the zones and subzones, I would like to make 2 other indications that are important for cava. As of 2025, all Cava Superior production has to come from organic vineyards. This is the first time that an appellation with such an extension is undertaking this. I think it's very positive development, and the production is being limited. Now we will have maximum 10,000 kilos of grapes per hectare. That means less than 70 hectoliters per hectare as maximum yield for this. Just compare this with other areas and you see it is much lower. It's also something that is taking into account the environment. It's also something that is taking into account that we need in Spain, that is a country in which water is a major problem. We also need to limit the use, not only because of quality, that is the first reason, but also because of keeping the use of water to a minimum. Then this is going to be the classification. We keep the whole thing on the minimum aging times for each category, and we cross this with the new thing of the different origins. This is the whole map of cava. As I explained to you, the reason for this is that in 1972, there was a specific denomination that was created in which there were wineries in all of these areas producing sparkling wines according to the méthode champenoise, and they needed to keep them just doing this. Of course, the things have developed a lot in 50 years, and we are adapting this map. Now, as you can understand very well, the climate here in Catalonia has very little in common with the climate in Rioja, with the climate in the high altitude areas of Levante, of Valencia, and with the climate in the very continental, very extreme areas of Almendralejo in Extremadura. So we are going to have different vineyards, we are going to have different wines. It's possible to have cava that is coming from any of those regions, and there is no problem on this, but once the producers are going to indicate one of the 4 different zones, 100% of the grapes, they have to come from the zones. So we have zones and subzones. The most important one, 95% of the production is here, is in Catalonia. is the song Comtats de Barcelona. Comtats de Barcelona is the historic name of Catalonia. Catalonia was first the count of Barcelona's, the count, sorry, of Barcelona that were expanding, and this was the origin of the kingdom of Catalonia, the kingdom of Aragon. That was all of this. So it's a very historic name, and it's referring to Catalonia. You know that because of the legislation, we cannot repeat the names of appellations of origin. So we cannot say this is Catalonia because there is an appellation of origin that is called Catalonia. And I think that Comtats de Barcelona is even a more creative name, but this is a personal idea. Then we have the area of the Ebro Valley. This is the Ebro River, all over the Ebro River. The Ebro starts in the Basque Country and finishes in Catalonia. And this is the area that is grouping together Aragon and Rioja. We have the area of Levante, or whatever the name it is, that basically is the area of production of around the city of Requena in Valencia. You know the wines from Utiel Requena, and this is Almendralejo that is close to the Guadiana River, and this is in Extremadura. These are the major areas and should be very different. Most of you are going to know most cava that you may find in the market. 95% of this is from here, is from Catalonia. There are some relevant markets for cava from Rioja, but most cava from Rioja was consumed basically in the Basque Country markets. The people of Bilbao, they call it the water from Bilbao. They are very proud people and they like to call it like this, and more for local markets. And Almendralejo is also more, I think, in the Spanish markets. In Valencia, now it's becoming more international. These wines there, they have wineries with an excellent technological development, but I insist, the huge majority of cava is going to come from Comtats de Barcelona, independently if they have the name or they are using the name or not. And in Comtats de Barcelona, within this, you are going to have the majority of the Catalan cava is going to come from here, what is called Vals de Noia and Foix, two small rivers that are in this area, but this is just to understand ourselves. This is the area of the Penedès. This is more or less a similar area, but as there is an appellation of origin that is called Penedès, it is we cannot use this, and we use this area of the valley of the Foix and Noia rivers. This is the classic area. You are going to find most classic wines are going to come from there. There you are going to have the trilogy of Parellada, Macabeo, and Xarel·lo. Today I've selected, I will explain to you later, 3 wines that are pure Xarel·lo, because I only have 3 wines to select, and I prefer to concentrate on the most typical and exclusive grape variety that is going to give maybe a better idea for you to compare on the different expressions of the different areas in the new regulations for cava. Then you have a second subzone within Comtats de Barcelona that is called Serra de Mar. Serra de Mar is equivalent to Alella. Alella is a very small appellation, only 8 wineries. It's very close to Barcelona. Is one of those places I would recommend you to visit because it's a protected natural area, but it's a lovely amphitheater with a very particular soil, the Sauló. It's a decomposed granite, and it's an area that is very nice because from there you can see Barcelona, and it's a very particular landscape, and it's an area that is looking at the sea, and this is in Serra de Mar. The speciality is practically the Xarel·lo. That is, there is called Pansa Blanca, but it's just simply a synonym. There is not any difference with the Xarel·lo. Then we go to the third area in which there is not yet a lot of cava there, but there are some important producers. That is the area that is the most classic wine city in Spain, together with Jerez from Sherry. that is in Tarragona, the Tarracus from the Romans, and a city that has several millennia history, and there are very particular areas. It's a warmer area, it's closer to the Mediterranean Sea, and there you may find the classic Catalan varieties, but I would say that there is a little bit more of Macabeo or Viura than Xarel·lo in this area. The fourth area is the area de Serra de Prades, that this is equivalent more or less to Conca de Barberà. I don't know if you know the wines from there. This is the cradle of the cultural Catalonia with the monastery of Poblet. And with in this area now there is a big fashion for Rosé Cava with the Trepat grape variety that is having at least in the Catalanian markets and in the Spanish markets is very popular. It's a variety that you can find only there in Serra de Prades. It's a more continental climate, it's higher altitude, it's fresher, and it's a particular style of cava. I insist, with a small production, some of the big houses are sourcing a lot of grapes from this area, but normally the wines are made in the Penedès area. And finally, we go to the latest subzone, that is the subzone de Pla de Ponent, that is more or less equivalent. Here there are many differences, but part of it is close to the Costers del Segre appellation of origin. There you have one winery is very well known, is Raimat, that was maybe just the founder of the sparkling wines, the cavas in this area. And it's an area that is cooler, is more continental, and is particularly well adapted to the Champenois grape varieties, to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. They are harvested quite early, they keep a very good acidity, and they are giving, I think that most of the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay high quality wines from Catalonia are coming from this area, from Costa del Segre. Although recently there is a lot of work with very high quality Xarel·lo, very nice acidity, very metallic Xarel·lo. For the time being, you are going to have some producers, I hope, because I don't know what is going to be released in the market, basically mostly from this area, from Vals d'Anoia, a few producers, two from Serra de Mar, Parcet and Altaleia mostly, there are other two that are smaller, and then not a lot from Conca del Gallà, not a lot from Serra de Prades for the time being, because most of the grapes are being blended with others, Raimat and maybe some others from Pla de Ponent. So there is a certain concentration on this, but I would bet that in the midterm, in a few years' time, we are going to have very distinctive cava wines coming from some of these subzones. I would bet for the Rosé Cava coming from Serra de Prades. I would bet for high quality Chardonnay Pinot Noir cavas from Pla de Ponent. I would bet for the top classic style of cava with very long aging from Vals d'Anoia, and for a very particular style of Xarel·lo in Serra de Mar. Conca del Gallà, maybe I'm not able just to look for the definition. I'm looking for very high quality Macabeo, but still I'm not sure about this. This is concerning the bulk, the most important part of the production of cava in Comtats de Barcelona. Then we go to the other areas, that is the Ebro Valley. We have practically the area of Rioja. There are a number of wineries in Rioja. They have been producing cava, sparkling wine, according to the Champenoise method for more than 1 century, some of them. Some of them are very well known, they are very classic. The styles now are getting more and more diverse to Catalonian styles. In the early times, they were concentrated very much in the method, and they were trying to standardize, to look for a certain style. Now they are looking for more Atlantic expressions of the cava. They are looking for very high acidity, very fresh, very mineral styles of cava. And I would bet that the more and more attention the producers are giving to the vineyards, and they already know that there are some vineyards in Rioja that are particularly good for the sparkling wines, the most distinctive cavas from Ebro Valley that we are going to find. It's an area in which I put a lot of hope, because it's going to be the representative of Atlantic cava, that is going to be something different. On top of that, here, most cavas are Viura or Macabeo. They have this freshness, but they are trying as well with some rosé cavas with Grenache or Garnacha, and they are doing interesting things on this. There are very few, I think that 80 hectares of Chardonnay planted, in which honestly I don't have an experience yet of a single Chardonnay cava from Valle del Ebro, just to speak about, but this is something that is open, and I know there are discussions also on considering other autochthonous grape varieties that are being just recovered now with this movement all over Spain of research for recovering autochthonous grape varieties. Then we have the other area, Valle del Cierzo. El Cierzo is a terrible wind, a wind that is very cold in a very hot area, and sometimes it's creating some climatic accidents. Other times it's keeping some good freshness in the traditional wines of the period. And this Valle del Cierzo represents the wines basically from the areas of, from some wineries in Calatayud and Cariñena. There are very old vines of Macabeo, as it is called there, Macabeo, and there are also some lovely rosé cavas with Grenache that are very, very particular, very original. I think that they are going to also to develop a style very much based either upon pure Macabeo wines, that they are going to have volume, they are going to have a roundness just around this, or this Grenache cava that is going to be, there are very fruity, very expressive, very agreeable on this with a different personality. We go to the next area, Almendralejo. Almendralejo is a very dry climate. It can be very, very, very hot, awfully hot sometimes. So they have to harvest very, very, very early. They are having some Chardonnay harvest in July. They are also having some Macabeo that is harvested early. And finally, they've one of these things that they were very lucky, because the grapes that are authorized for cava, it was decided according to the tradition, mostly looking at Catalonia, but there is one very Catalonian grape that is called Subirat Parent, that is of, the origin is in Extremadura, is the Alarige from Extremadura. In Rioja is called Malvasia, but there are two Malvasias in Rioja. And this Alarige grape that is well adapted to Almendralejo, to Extremadura, can produce more interesting wines there. Almendralejo is still, they need to define and to work a lot on their vineyards for this, but they see these avenues, guys going for normal cava, very early picking Chardonnay, for cavas with a bit more ambition, some blends Macabeo Chardonnay, and for a very particular cavas still under experimentation with this Alarige grape that is a very, very old grape, very old grape variety. And I finish with the song that is in the area of Utiel Requena, or Requena, in the province of Valencia. This is the typical area of the Utiel Requena wines, the area of the Bobal grapes that now is very much very well known. Very high altitude vineyards. You have some vineyards at 800, 850 meters altitude. Is although it's close to the Mediterranean, there are mountains just in between, and this is a high plateau, and the climate is slightly continental, and is giving a lot of freshness. Is one of those areas that is being rediscovered for Spain. This area of Requena and north of Requena is extremely cool, and I see many interesting things there. The good thing about Requena is this potential in the vineyards, very low yields. And the other good thing is that there are a few producers that are really good in the winemaking technology, that are investing a lot of money in research in the vineyards and in the winery, and is likely to produce wines with a very distinctive profile. They are trying not only with the grape varieties indicated here, with Macabeo, Grenache, and Chardonnay. They are also trying a bit with Pinot Noir, very particular styles of Pinot Noir, and with the blends of all of these wines. For the time being, I think that most of these wines are being sold in Spain, but I think that they have a very nice potential for the future. But of course, they are not. None of the areas is still at the level of development of knowledge of the vineyards that you may find in the cradle of Cava, in the Penedès area, in the Comtats de Barcelona, in the Vals de Noia Foix. This is something that is going is coming. Because of that, it would be a nonsense to try to tell you now all of these things are very clear. No, we have the basis for this, and the producers will develop at different speeds, will develop the knowledge of the different areas in such a way that they will develop these distinctive styles. Because of that, today for the tasting, I have selected three wines that are, I decided if I'm going for three different varieties, for three different zones, that would be a mess and you will not retain anything. So I decided to go for one single grape variety, the most typical one, the Xarel·lo, that is the exclusive of Catalonia, that has, I think it has a very high potential for quality, and with the same zone, Comtats de Barcelona, that at the end of the day, it is at least in quantitative terms, the most important area, and with with two different subzones. One, just to start with, would be the Alta Alella. This is coming, as the name says, from Alella or from Serra de Mar. This is the name used for this subzone within Comtats de Barcelona. Is a pure Xarel·lo or Pansa Blanca, as it is known in Alella. Is the typical grape variety there. They use it not only for sparkling wines, also for dry wines, and it's very nice acidity. These vineyards are very close to the sea. It's a natural area, is protected. You cannot have more vineyards, you cannot have more houses. And I selected this wine because I know just the way the people is making the wine. With Mireia is a winemaker that is taking a lot of care on the details for the wines, on the vineyards, and it's a very good definition of the Xarel·lo fruit, in my opinion. As I know that only some of you are, not all of you are tasting the wines, I will not speak a lot on the wines because I don't want to create envies, and on the other hand, just to tell you about walnuts or apples or whatever. If you're not tasting the wine, I think it's a nonsense. It's a reserva, so it's just the Acaba de Guarda Superior. It is not a wine that is made in order to show the complexities of the long contact with the lees. Is much more made with just in order to give the freshness of the fruit and to make for a cava that is quite open and quite, I would say, easy to understand, easy going, but it has a personality. It's a personality of this area with this very particular soil. The soil is called Saulot. is a granite soil that is completely decomposed, is absolutely decomposed, is very, very deep, and is giving an excellent capacity for permeability to the water. It's a very unique type of soil. I have not seen it anywhere else, and it's giving this kind of wines that I hope that you enjoy. The second wine is a very small producer, is Avignon, is also a representative. We are having three types of producers as well. We are having a producer for a very specific area, Saltaleya, a very small family producer with very small production, and a producer that is relatively large, is not one of the three behemoths of the appellation that are Codorniu, Freixenet, and Jaume Serra, but is a producer that produces several million bottles, so it's already quite relevant. And I think it's giving you also a good indication of the diversity of producers in Cava. Just consider that many of those producers are former vine growers that became producers. They started by learning how to produce grapes for the big three, for the big producers, and then they learned just the method, and they started refining their way of making wine. Some of them have decided to go for very long aging cavas. Others are looking more for the particularity of the fruit in their origin, in their particular origin, and these are the different expressions. The first one is more a cava of the origin, Serra de Mar, Alella, Despensa Blanc, this Mediterranean style with the Saulo soil. The second one is a very small producer that is already a Gran Reserva, and this is a cava that is aged on its lease for 8 years. Already is a long time. Those cavas, they are aged 8 years because I guess that they have to just to sell the wine at some time, but they can be aged for much longer. One of the pleasures of visiting the Cava region, when you go there, try to do it. And if they are in good humor, they will open for you one bottle that has not been degorged for many, many years. And this is also always a pleasure for this. Again, this is a Xarel·lo, technically a pure Xarel·lo variety. I think there is a little bit of Macabeo here. It's not a cava de paraje calificado, simply because there is a small proportion of this that the vineyard was not just the same vineyard. They are coming from two vineyards. I think that 85% is from Raticota, from a very old vineyard. I think was planted 1940 or something like this. And there is but there is a proportion of others. And this is a cava in which I selected it's just to express how Xarel·lo can age very, very well. It's a cava I like the complexity, the added complexity with the aging and the finish. And if you see, it's a wine that you would never think it tries to be anything like champagne. It has nothing to do with champagne. It's a completely different balance. The acidities are not this very high clips acidity of champagne. These are wines that are more in the roundness and more looking for a very gentle and very slow finish. This is the style, and I insist. I don't know the production, but here we are speaking on the few thousand bottles, and then we go for the luxury wine, the top wine by Juvey Camps. I guess that most of you, if not all, you know Juvey Camps. Juvey Camps is just the one who is after in production volumes after the three big producers. They are extremely well known all over the world. It's a family that has a long tradition. They have 1 century. They are celebrating this year 1 century of history of production wine. Is a house that started producing basic cava. It's a very good synthesis of what cava is about. They started by producing very basic cava. They were developing new types. They discovered with Reserva de la Familia that the best possible expression of cava is when it is completely dry, and there was a big success in the US, the Reserva de la Familia, and then they started knowing better and better the vineyards, selecting a few vineyards for this, and for a very small vineyard in the highest area in their zone of production in La Capella, they selected this wine for years and years. They were vinifying it separately, and where the regulation for Cava de Paraje Calificado, for single vineyard Cava, appeared, they were one of the ones who applied for selection. And I can tell you it was very, very easy to select them. I think it has all the elements of the top Cava. It has the identity. It's a very clear identity of the Xarel·lo grape with this particular balance. It has a very long age. It's 9 years on its list. It's a cava. I keep some bottles of La Capella and the Carnation bottle very, very well. And it's basically a unique style of top cava. This is what we look for in cava. And this is, I think, what we look for the appellation. My vision of the appellation is that in the future, there are going to be several, more than 100 million bottles for sure, of cava that is going to be the normal cava, very good prices, very clear quality definition, minimum aging 9 months, and a very good price quality ratio. And then we are going to enter into the new categories. The Cava Superior should be wines that are having more of a definition, more of an ambition. They should have more of the element of the fruit definition or the definition because of the aging. And then we will have on one hand Cavas that are going to be Gran Reserva, that are going to be very, very much marked by the very long aging. They have to be very strong wines for this, or cavas that are coming from specific vineyards that they should have a personality. In all of this, mostly for those cavas indicating a specific origin, we are going to have the most classic expression from Vals de Noia, Foix. We are going to have expressions with the French grape varieties, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, in the area of the Pla de Ponent. We are going to have more Mediterranean styles in the areas that are closer to the sea, and then we are going to have the rosé speciality with Trepat in the other area, and then we are going to have maybe in Requena or in Levante, whatever the name is, because the name has not yet been decided. I think it's going to be Zona de Levante. For the areas of Levante, we are going to have wines that are going to be very much identified by very early picking and very high technology. In the Valle del Ebro, in Valle del Cierzo, I think that the Grenache is going to be their specialty with a few Macabeo, very round cava style of wines. And in Rioja, we are going to have this Atlantic Rioja Atlantic style that is going to be very much marked by a different fruit profile on this. I hope this is going to be the situation in the future, that the wine lover may have a choice of different styles of cava. There is going to be a lot of diversity on this, and there is going to be, for each one of the top categories, a very clear statement of quality on those wines. This is my hope. There are going to be, I insist, several more than 100 million bottles of the basic cava that it has to have full traceability, it has to have to respect all the things, but are going to be in the market segment they are. For the others, I think we are going to have many other different market segments and personalities. Cava is all over Spain. It has to represent what is, for me, the only common feature of Spain, that is the diversity. We are a country that is full of mountains. We have been all of our history having many languages, many different cultures, because there are mountains that are splitting the country in many things. Diversity for centuries has been a problem. I hope that now is an opportunity, because diversity is something that we all look for. And Cava has to represent also this diversity just within Spain. This is my hope for this. I think the appellation is doing what has to be done in order to do this. I think this is not going to be evident in 1 or 2 years' time. We are going to need more time. But I also think, I know that there are already a good number of wines that are representing these avenues for the future. I hope that those of you who were fortunate to taste the wines, you enjoy them. You will tell me. For the others, I'm really sorry. I would like just to start again doing the presential tastings in such a way that I'm sure that everybody is drinking the same at the same time. Thank you very much, and I'm open for all your questions.
Yes, so you have now the opportunity to ask and whatever you want to know. I have already some questions, Pedro. I will pass on to you.
Okay.
So I will start with the first one. So let me see. This is, why hasn't Cava from the start communicated about the differences between the white, green and black label seal about the aging? Many consumers doesn't understand the difference between a gap of 7 and 20 euro.
Yes, yes. You know, I think it's important just to make this. I think that now, with this clear distinction with one word, superior, and not having superior, is going to make things easier, because it is also true that we cannot expect from the consumer that they are memorizing just for Cava what is a Reserva, Gran Reserva, and a Cava de Guarda, because they also have the Prosecco, the Champagne, and many other things. And I think also that the code of colors is important for the professionals, it's important for us, but it's not so relevant for the consumers. I know in other products, the Spanish ham, the Pata Negra, there is also a code of color, and for me it's taking a few months to remember all the colors on this. So I guess these are things for the certification, but are things that are not enough for the consumer. For the consumer, they need indications that are simpler. I really hope that the word superior that is very simple is going to indicate something for the consumer, mostly because this word superior entails a number of conditions. You have to have a lower yield, you have to be organic, you have to have full traceability. So this, I hope that this is going to be like this. But it's true that with these code colors are only useful for certification for the professionals, not for the consumers. I fully agree.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question from Lucia. What about trends?
Lucia.
What
it's
about,
my Lucia Champs.
Right. Right.
Good.
What about trends toward drier styles like Brut Nature or Extra Brut, also strong like in other sparkling producer regions, other sparkling producing regions? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's the most interesting trend, and I think it's quite natural. There is a trend all over the world for having drier sparkling wines. I adore champagne. I like it a lot. But sometimes for me, Brut Nature in champagne is slightly too acidic. And but I like acidic wine. But for many consumers, it's quite strong. Cava, you have a slightly lower acidity, and a full dry style goes very well. I think this is the trend. Honestly, I like less and less Cava with relevant levels of residual sugar. I think that it tends to be less interesting. While I like a lot champagne with some residual sugar on this. I think it's a trend all over the world, but I think it's a trend that we cannot, because of fashion, go to wines that are going to make to be aggressive on our mouth, as some very acidic wines are sometimes. I'm speaking to a German audience. You are the masters of balancing sugar and acidity, and this is something that I still adore. my normal wine is a cabinet or a Spätlese because I adore this balance of sugar and acidity. So you understand this very well. And here with Cava, we are speaking of different levels of acidity, and I think that full dryness is working really, really well.
Okay, then we have a question. Ivan is asking, I tasted a few times Cava blends with the grape Subirat Parent. How do you see this grape's role in the Cava blend? Same question for Garnacha.
Yeah, Subirat Parent. Well, you know, with autochthonous varieties, grape varieties, in my country, in Spain, but also in Italy, I see it, there is something that is very, very, very legitimate. To be proud of your past and to try to recover your genetic heritage. And we are now undertaking is amazing, the number of grape varieties that are being recovered. This is the positive part for this. And because there is good technology, good science, good knowledge, you can produce very good wines out of this. The other more folkloric part of this is that very often we introduce an element of being proud of our land for this, and we have this great variety and very, very long time on this. And I always say it's excellent, it's necessary to recover our grape varieties. Then we have to demonstrate that with those grape varieties, we can produce top wines. Subirat Parent is a very funny grape variety because this is according, depending with whom you speak, it is a Catalonian grape variety, or it's a grape variety for Rioja, or it's a Larige from Extremadura, or even in my homeland, in Canary Islands, they say that this is from Canary Islands. So imagine this. It's a grape variety that until recently, I never tasted wines of very, very high quality. Now, recently, in the last 8 to 10 years, there are amazing wines being produced, both in Catalonia and also some experimental things in Extremadura are improving a lot. So I'm confident on this. I would not select, for the time being, a Subirat Parent or a Larige a wine to show the top of Cava. But I don't exclude that maybe in 5-6 years' time, I will do it. I think it's giving some originality. There is a good narrative associated to the grape variety. There is a certain particular style of this. It's a bit of rusticity in it, but it's a very interesting grape variety. And people is experimenting both with Cava and with dry wines on this. But for the time being, it's one of those varieties with a potential.
Mm-hmm.
And for Grenache, that is completely different. Grenache, in a few areas, not in all areas, Grenache can give really very nice quality. There is now a Grenache Cava from a winery in Cariñena that is really very well defined, very nice fruit. But I find always with the Rosé Cavas from Grenache that the most important element is the fruitiness. I don't think that those cavas are made to be aged for a very, very long time. Are those cavas that you want to enjoy when you want a sparkling wine with this of fruit and this freshness and this joy, because Grenache is always about joy of life, no? And I think this is the style. Again, there are very few very high quality rosé cavas with Grenache, but those that are there, I really like a lot. And they are basically in Valles del Ebro, basically in Aragon and in Rioja.
Okay. Pedro, I just got the information that maybe you can show the map again from.
Yes, the map of Spain, the map of Cava, the map of Catalonia. Which map? Mm-hmm. This one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, the Cava regions, Pedro.
Yeah, this one.
Thank you.
So, any further questions? I don't have more questions here for the moment. I have, sorry. Marcos is asking, hi Pedro, how are cheap but actually quite good cavas like Cabre and Sabate selling in Mercadona at €2.29, affecting the image of Cava in the domestic market?
Badly. And I tell you, because I always want to be very honest in what I say, the most important drama in my country, in Spain, is the absolutely unfair price that people pay for the grapes. These people is not giving any money or is not just trying to sell very cheap because they cannot sell, they are making money. The only thing that the people who is not making money are the vine growers. Because in Spain, we have some of the cheapest grapes in the world. Just compare the prices, I mentioned it before. In Champagne, they pay €7 a kilo of grapes. In Penedès, the price is more or less 40 cents of an euro. Just in Germany, you are over €1. Prosecco, yields that are much higher than Cava, we are speaking of 16,000 kilos, they pay €1 a kilo. The vine growers in the Prosecco region are rich. The vine growers in Spain are having a lot of that. They don't want their kids to become vine grower. And this is a real drama in my country. The wineries, they have no problem. They have the margins. They are doing the things. The problem is that we are starting with a country that is losing a lot of population in the rural areas. People is concentrated in the cities. Rural areas are being abandoned. By the way, you Germans, please come to the rural areas in Spain to live there. No, don't go all of you to Mallorca. Please go to inside of Spain. That is very nice. And please have some vineyards there, because really this is the problem in my country. This is the real drama. The prices of grapes are too low because, well, the people is not prepared. I don't know what. In some areas, this is being recovered, but the real reason for so cheap Cava, that is very bad for the image of Cava, and it's very bad for the future of my country, is that the grapes are cheap. Because all the other things are, the wineries are very professional, and they are working in a competitive world with their own margins, and they are not losing any money.
Okay. I got a question from Mats. What are the current trends in viticulture to increase the quality of Cava? What, I think, apart from what you presented today, and what are the effects of these practices?
The trends are several trends. First, to try to protect by all means the old vines. We realize that some of the top Cavas come from very old vines. And this is a trend, and this is something that is going to become more and more important. This is going to be for a very small part of the production, but this is very important. Second trend, absolutely crucial, is to become organic. Cava will be by 2025 an organic appellation of origin. It's not only because this may have or may not have, I don't know, implications of quality, it's also because it has implications on responsibility. And if you are selling a beverage that is for pleasure and for joy, you need to have this pleasure and the joy also in the territory. So it's important to protect this. The third element is to keep mostly for Cava Superior, limited yields. We realized that we cannot have so high yields as in Prosecco or Champagne, because the climates are different. I don't make any comparisons in quality or whatever. It's simply the climates are different, and there is a trend to work with limited yields.
Okay. Yes, and now a question that came often: what about Corpinat?
Yeah. Corpinat and Penedès Classic and many other things. I think Corpinat, I have a lot of friends in Corpinat. Corpinat are producers, some of them top quality producers. Some of them, I was, as I said before, I was in the selection of Cava de Paraje Calificado, and some of them, they were very easily as well selected as Cava de Paraje Calificado. They are producers that they have, they are small size or medium sized producers that they own just the vineyards, and they were defending the point of view of highlighting the origin of the grapes and highlighting the specific vineyards. The appellation of origin just replied to this by creating Cava de Paraje Calificado. At the time, most Corpinat producers were in the competition for this, and then this zonification project has been developed already with Corpinat being created. I really hope, because there is, of course, not any possible difference between a top cava Comtats de Barcelona and a Corpinat cava. They are coming from the same grapes, from the same origin, and with extremely similar for the top producers in cava and Corpinat, extremely similar winemaking methods. I really hope, because I know all of them, and I really hope that one day they will reach an agreement in such a way that they have a single name for this, and because this is the benefit not just for cava, not for Corpinat, just a benefit for Catalonia and a benefit for Spain. But these are things that happen, and these are the different things. We were having a conflicting approach, the industrial approach of producing a lot of wine, a very good price, with a good quality, and the wines that were indicating the origin. There was a conflict, and I think there was a problem of the timing of the conflict. And I really hope, because now I think that cava has really the possibility of highlighting where your wine is coming from, that they are in a much better position for reaching one day an agreement.
Okay.
But I think it's going to take time as well. Okay. We are Mediterranean people, we need time in order to, to do things.
That's right. Now we switch again to the label. Do you have, or do cava have to state the dare of disgorgement on the label?
Well, this is this is voluntary. Many producers they make it. I would be in favor of having it, at least for cava Gran Reserva and Paraje Calificado, simply because I really think that the top cava can be a wine that can be collected, that can be kept at home, or can be resold in auction for a long time, and then it's crucial to know which is the day of the disgorgement for the wines. I think it's simply an indication for the very refined consumer that is necessary to know. For normal cava, I don't see any point on this, because these wines are being sold and drunk in the year. No.
Okay, so one, I think, last question, yes. Do the councils of the DOs in Spain have any voice and power towards the monopolistic distribution channels like Mercadona to increase pricing for the grapes? Okay, this is not directly a question connected to cava, but in general, maybe interesting.
I think that the appellations of origin are a very good instrument, not only in Spain, all over the world, in order to keep a certain image of value. I think that those supermarket distribution chains, of course, they push a lot for low prices, and the chain of power sometimes is resulting in very low prices being paid to the vine growers. So this, I think, is, and I think there is a law in Spain in which it is forbidden to sell grapes at a price that is less than the production cost. But I think that they don't include in this law that the production cost is also the salary of the vine grower, because otherwise I don't understand it. But anyway, I think this is a big problem, not only for the wine and not only in Spain, but it's a big problem. But I think that the appellations of origin are a good instrument, sometimes not sufficiently strong to try to limit this, because otherwise they would be we would be just running towards the cheapest and cheapest price. And I also think that I like wine when wine has a distinction, has a name, has a narrative, has something to tell. Otherwise, it is a common alcoholic beverage of very limited interest.
Okay, Pedro. Thank you very much. This was the last question for today.
Good.
So it was a pleasure having you. Thank you to everybody for participating, and we hope you enjoy this webinar. I don't know if Pablo wants to say goodbye too.
Pablo, you are muted.
Thank you very much, Pedro. It was a pleasure having you here with us, and it was a great presentation and with a great explanation of the new zonification rules. If you have just 1 minute, I would love to hear your hard opinion, your personal opinion about this step towards the quality recognition of CAVAs from Consejo Regulador as the last sentence. And in order, and I would like to thank also Patricia Correa, who is also on this webinar. He's the director of the Consejo Regulador CAVA. We'd like to thank her very much for the coordination of this CAVA webinar. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you all. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.